Alright, ultra-wide lovers, today we are testing something special. We are here on our photography expedition in the stunning Lofoten Islands, Norway, putting a brand new ultra-wide lens to the test. And for once, it's an ultra-wide that actually lets you screw on filters. No giant bulbous front element, no bulky adapter rings, just simple, practical screw-on filters. This is the Sony 16mm f1.8G. Compact, fast, and apparently perfect for astro, seascape, and landscapes. But is it really? Can it handle the Arctic cold, the harsh coastal winds, and the extreme conditions we are about to throw at it? And most importantly, can it keep stars perfectly sharp at f1.8? Well, that's exactly what we are about to find out. We'll be testing it on northern lights, seascapes, and even astrophotography using a star tracker. If this lens has flaws, they will show up here. And by the way, if you want to experience and shoot in epic locations like this, check out the link below for upcoming photo expeditions. Join us in the field and take your photography to the next level. Alright, let's see if this little lens is the real deal or just another overhyped gimmick. First impressions, why this lens stood out? So why was I excited about this lens? Well, first off, it's a prime 16mm f1.8 from Sony's G lineup. And while the G series isn't positioned as the absolute top tier like the GM lenses, it still delivers really impressive optical quality. Sony's G lenses are known for being well built, sharp, and offering excellent performance at a more reasonable size, weight, and price, making them a great choice for photographers who need high quality without the extra bulk. And for landscape photography, 16mm is an extreme focal lens. You either love it or you struggle to make it work. But this lens has the potential to be special. For shooting the northern lights, nightscapes or stars, it has a fast f1.8 aperture. But beyond that, this might just be the perfect tool for special creative projects like capturing those foggy forests in Madeira. Some ultra-wide lenses allow you to get incredibly close to your subject while still keeping everything sharp and free of distortion. And then there's the filter situation, which honestly is a huge deal. Most ultra-wide lenses have a bulging front element, making it impossible to screw on filters. And since we only use screw-on filters, and we have covered in previous videos exactly why, these types of lenses are often far less practical for landscape photographers. But this time it's different. With a standard 67mm filter thread, we can easily attach a polarizer to cut reflection of water, a night filter to reduce light pollution, or any other filter we actually need out in the field. No ridiculous adapters, no massive 150mm square filter system, just a simple and practical setup. For an ultra-wide, that's a huge plus. On top of that, it's super lightweight, just 353 grams, which makes it a perfect travel lens. And yes, it's weather sealed, so no worries about a bit of rain, snow or ocean spray. But here's the thing about ultra-wide lenses. There are some quirks that can make them tricky to use, especially if you are new to them. One of the biggest limitations is perspective distortion. Ultra-wide lenses tend to exaggerate the foreground, making anything close to the camera seem huge while pushing the background way back. It can be a great tool for creating dramatic compositions, but if you are not careful, it can make mountains, cliffs or distant elements look disappointingly small. For example, let's say you are shooting a landscape with a mountain in the background. At 16mm, unless you have a strong foreground element, the mountain might end up look like a tiny hill instead of the epic peak it really is. That's why ultra-wide compositions need a strong foreground anchor to work well. So, is 16mm too wide for general landscapes? Not necessarily, it just means you have to be intentional with your composition. Get low, find a solid foreground element, and use those leading lines to bring the viewer's eye into the scene. Alright, let's see how it performs in the field. Sharpness. Let's move on to one of the most important tests, sharpness. We have taken shots at f1.8, f2.8, f4, f5.6, f8 and f11. We'll be checking sharpness in the center. Is it crisp and well defined where it matters most? And how about the corners? Do they hold up? Or do we see noticeable softness at wider apertures? Let's take a closer look. The lens performs very well. Center sharpness is very good from the f1.8 already. It's very solid even in the corners, and some softness starts to show up in the extreme corners, but in area that is often cropped. From f2.8, even the extreme corners look good, and from f5.6, on the sharpness across the whole image is very nice. At the moment of shooting this video, there are no lens profiles available, so it will likely improve even more the profile since it usually crops the image a little. During previous Northern Lights shots, we used Sony 14mm f1.8 GM, so we already have reference images for comparison. It would be great if the weather and aurora activity cooperate, allowing us to capture fresh shots with Sony 16mm f1.8G under similar conditions. That way, we can directly compare the two lenses and see how they handle astrophotography side by side. And in the end, we were lucky enough to witness a beautiful aurora borealis during our photo expedition. It gave us the opportunity to compare images taken with the Sony 14mm f1.8 GM and the 16mm f1.8G, both shot at f2.8. To our surprise, the performance of both lenses was almost identical. In fact, the 16mm even seems slightly better in some cases. That's quite unexpected, considering that the 14mm lens belongs to the GM series. On the other hand, the 14 is also 2mm wider, making it a more extreme focal length. You can evaluate the sharpness as well as other tested aspects yourself by checking the raw files provided for download via the link below the video. Distortion. When considering ultra-wide-angle lenses like Sony 16mm, distortion is always something to keep in mind, especially for architecture and landscape photography, where straight lines are important. Typically, lenses at this focal length tend to show noticeable better distortion, making straight lines appear curved, which can require correction in post-processing. However, based on our test, Sony 16mm performs better than expected in this regard. There is some mustache distortion, but it remains relatively mild for an ultra-wide prime. It's only slight stretching toward the edges of the frame. It's also less pronounced compared to lenses covering similar focal lengths. One thing to note is that a certain level of distortion correction is applied in camera or in post-processing profiles, which can slightly affect corner sharpness at wider apertures. But for mostly world applications, the distortion is minimal and easy to correct if necessary, making the lens a solid choice even for photographers who need clean, straight lines in their compositions. Flare and backlight. In our testing of this new lens, we closely inspected how it handles flare and strong backlighting, which are critical factors for ultra-wide-angle lenses. Shooting directly into the sun or bright artificial light is often a challenge, as some lenses struggle with excessive ghosting, washed-out contrast, or unwanted reflections. Based on our test, Sony 16mm controls flare surprisingly well. Even when shooting straight into the sun at various apertures, we observed only minor ghosting and a well-maintained contrast across the frame. Sun stars start forming nicely around f4 and becoming more pronounced at f5.6, making it a solid option for those who like this effect in landscape photography. And it has 11 blades, so it makes 22-point stars. Compared to the other ultra-wide primes, it handles backlight better than expected, with only a slight loss of contrast in extreme situations. While no lens is completely immune to flare, the coating on this one seems to do a great job at keeping unwanted reflections under control. It makes the lens a very good choice for shooting sunrises, sunsets, and nice scenes with strong light sources in the frame. Vignetting. When evaluating ultra-wide-angle lenses, we naturally expect some degree of vignetting. Based on our experience, one of the key differences between Sony's G and GM series is that G lenses tend to show more noticeable vignetting and better distortion, whereas GM lenses are engineered to minimize these optical imperfections, while both vignetting and distortion can be corrected in post-processing. Doing so can lead to cropping or slight softening of the image. Based on our test, Sony 16mm does show some visible vignetting at f1.8, which gradually improves as you stop down. This level of vignetting is common for ultra-wide primes and often adds a subtle, natural vignette that some photographers actually find pleasing. If necessary, it can be corrected easily in post-processing. Autofocus. While in our Sony 20-70mm test, we at least briefly covered autofocus speed and precision, we will not be analyzing it here. Given the typical use of this lens for landscape and architectural photography, autofocus speed simply isn't a concern. After all, mountains or buildings are not going to run anyway. As for consistency, there is no real reason to question it. And if anyone does, that can always adjust focus manually, just like we do. What surprised me a bit was the focusing. After our first field test, we saw the lens was completely soft and actually terrible. Then, we started experimenting with different focus distances. We still wanted everything to be sharp from almost the tripod to infinity. We found that as soon as we focused slightly farther than usual for this focal length, the image became razor sharp. Have you had a similar experience? Let us know in the comments below. At least we'll find out whether this is a feature of the lens or just an issue with our unit. The lens uses an internal focusing system, so the front element doesn't extend or rotate, making it ideal for use with filters. Seascapes and filters, what works best? Now let's talk seascapes. Normally, with ultra-wides like 40mm, you have to use a bulky filter holder. But with this lens, just screw on a filter and you are ready to go. But here's an important note about filters. Since this is such a wide focal length, you really need to use thin frame screw-on filters, just like that. Avoid magnetic filters, because they require an extra adapter ring, which pushes the filter farther from the lens. And that small increase in distance can cause vignetting in the corners. So if you are using this lens, stick to ultra-thin screw-on filters for the best results. Now, a lot of people think an ND filter is the best choice for seascapes, but honestly, I would go for a polarizer instead. It removes unwanted reflections on the water surface, making the ocean, sea or waterfalls look clearer and more vibrant. So if I had to pick up just one filter for seascape at 16mm, polarizer all the way. Alright, time for the serious test. If you have ever shot the night sky, you know that ultra-wide lenses often struggle with issues like coma and astigmatism, which basically means your stars start looking squished. To really push this lens to its limit, I'm mounting it on a star tracker. It eliminates motion blur from Earth's rotation, so if the stars look distorted, we know it's the lens, not camera shake. And at f1.8, this is a brutal test. After taking a few track exposures, wow, I'm actually impressed. The stars are looking really clean. There's almost no coma even in the corners. That's rare for an ultra-wide. Now let's talk about filters for night photography. With the Sony 40mm f1.8 GM, attaching front filters is a challenge due to its bulbous front element. While you can get specialized filter holders, they can be cumbersome and expensive. The Sony 16mm features a standard 67mm filter thread, allowing for easy attachment of filters like the Nissin Natural Night Filter, which is designed to reduce light pollution in night sky photos. It makes the 16mm lens more versatile and convenient for astrophotographers who frequently use such filters. Pros and cons. Pros: lightweight, easy to carry for travel and hiking. Screw-on 67mm filters, no bulky adapter rings needed. Great for astrophotography performance, minimal coma, clean stars. f1.8 aperture, fast and bright for low light shooting. Weather sealed, durable for outdoor conditions. Cons. Overall, I have to say that we struggle to find any big cons. Maybe some vignetting at f1.8, but much better at f2.8. Magnetic filters can cause vignetting, so use the thin screw-on filters instead. And no optical stabilization, but Sony cameras have in-body stabilization. So is this the best ultra-wide lens for landscape and astro? Well, if you want a lightweight, filter-friendly f1.8 lens that delivers great results for both day and night photography, then this lens a fantastic choice. That's a wrap. So what do you think? Is the Sony 16mm f1.8G a must-have, or are you sticking with your current ultra-wide? Drop a comment below. If you found this video helpful, hit the like button. And if you want more real-world lens tests, night photography tips, and epic photo expeditions, subscribe and ring the bell so YouTube actually shows you our videos. Alright, see you in the next one, hopefully under some epic auroras.
By the way, have you heard that you can join us on our exclusive photography expeditions to Lofoten and Iceland? If you want to know more, check the link below.